Good evening, and welcome back to another dangerous discussion in bed with B. I'm your host, B, and tonight we are talking about the rebirth. This episode is tender for me right now, to be perfectly honest with you, because as you know, I like to discuss things in real time, and this is recent for me. So I'm still very open and very exposed, and I have been really keeping my energy close to me this week because I don't want any external factors to impact what I'm feeling at this moment. And so we're talking about the 595 days of me abstaining from sex and breaking the abstinence. I'm so excited to do so, but it has been a journey and we're going to talk about all of the goodness. But before we do so, let's have our edge of the bed discussion. Let's consent to all the good things in life. Let's consent to having a fantastic time in bed tonight, to enjoying the moment, enjoying one another. I hope that you have something that you're sipping on that is good for you, maybe some tea. This episode feels like tea and cannabis tonight. I hope that you are here for the vibes and that you're smoking on something good if you smoke, or maybe you had a little edible. But let's get under the covers. So tonight, again, we're talking about the 595 days. That is impressive, honestly. The time that I was able to spend with myself during this journey in abstinence, which is outside of the 595 days, it's over a year and 7 months in abstinence. For you who have been following my journey, my goal was to only make a year. I really set out to just do a year complete in abstinence. It was 595 days of resourcing my own energy and recalibrating myself because of trauma and what I had allowed myself to be exposed to from a male's perspective and my interactions with my past partnerships and relationships. Ever since I've lost my virginity, I lost my virginity when I was 18 years old. It was 3 weeks before I turned 19. I still remember that feeling and that day, and then it was just a whirlwind ever since. This was really the first time that I allowed myself to really be with myself and have the moments of reflection without any external validation, external input, or anything like that. It was really time just with me. And I learned so much during that time. I've said it before, abstinence is not for the weak. I don't think that everybody is equipped for abstinence because it feels very stretching at times. There were definite times where I wanted to have sex, and I also felt like I couldn't just have sex because I don't look at sex the same way that most people look at sex. I'm not just trying to get one off here and there and let that be that. How I have practiced sex within this time that I spent with myself, how I look at it is very deep and it's very sacred, and it's not to be fucked with. It's not to be fucked around with, because that's how it gets weaponized, and that's how you don't get the juice, pun intended, that comes with sex. So the time that I spent with myself, it was stretching at times. There were times where I just wanted to throw in the towel, but there was no one that I felt was qualified enough for me to throw in the towel to. It left me in a very interesting position because then it was like, okay, now it's time to level up. Like, this time is not about anyone else. This time is strictly and solely about you because you deserve that for yourself. The biggest lesson that I learned within those 595 days is that you have to go into your practice or whatever it is that you are working towards. You have to leave out of that energy with the same energy that you left into it. Because some people stay in things for too long. We see this all the time where people are too comfy in relationships and so they stay, or unhappy in marriage and they stay, unhappy at jobs and they stay. Like, we just see it all the time. Or even unhappy in their career in entrepreneurship. They're not trying to make a change about what it is that they want. And so people just get stuck in this staying energy for too long because it feels good here or feels comfortable here. But that's just not for me. I felt like the moment I made a year and a day I was super restless and abstinent, and I knew that it was a matter of time for me to be breaking that seal. This was November of last year. This was around my birthday. There was no man for me to even consider ending abstinence with because I wasn't even on that. Life was telling me that you thought you were going to do a year because that's what you had made up in your mind, but you still have work to do. So the universe sent me lessons in the interim of this time leading up to breaking the seal. The first lesson that I received was the interactions that I had at the beginning of this year with the 2 months that I exchanged with the first man. During that time, I felt like, yes, this is the man. I had a spiritual bath. I dreamt about him. I manifested him into my life. And I still believe that to be true. I believe that 1,000% he was meant for that time because he reminded me who I was. I have forgotten. I spent this year prior to this trying to remember, and I was seeing glimpses of it, but I didn't have that mirror so close to me to do a constant check-in and reminder of who I am and who I've become. It becomes a little bit difficult and challenging when you're just spending all of this time healing in the house by yourself. Because of course you've healed to some level and some capacity, I hope, within that time. But the point of being a human being is to be able to connect and love on and experience and remember through other people. I wanted to continue to evolve as a person, and looking back on that 2 month situation, there was a lot of ways where I was still making myself small because I was trying to fit into a box that wasn't meant for me to fit in. And I felt that it was a test because there was some karmic things that I looked into about us. And I felt like it was a test for me to really do it for the love, do it for the right reasons, because not all the time in my past lives have I been doing it for the love. And it may have grown into love. There may have been some aspects of loves, but there was other things that I loved and liked more than quality time with the person. It came with amenities. And so the aesthetics and the looks of it was very important to me regardless of the story. And I felt like this is what this was. So it was a test for me to be like, okay, I'm going to do this for the love regardless of the situation that this man is in and how it could potentially impact me future forward thinking wise. And that just wasn't it because my body didn't open for him. So my body was telling me, no, we got this far for this reason, but this is not the person that you are meant to be with. And as you know, just to recap, I went and saw a sexologist. I met with my sexologist, my girl Emily, shout out to Em. And she gave me all of these beautiful suggestions about what to do in order to prep my body for sex after having come out of abstinence. She gave me all of these resources like sex toys and lube and all of these things, which I was having an adjustment moment because I've never had to use these things. I've never had to use toys. And to be perfectly honest, I don't need lube. So I've never had to do these things before, so it was humbling for me. But one of the things that said that I'm just recalling is your body will open when it feels soft and ready. And I know that to be true now because that's exactly what happened. Well, I had that 2 month situation. And then I went into my fling, and my fling and I didn't even get close to having sex. It was just the idea. It was the lusting aspect. It was one long tease, and I just can't be teased for too long. And so that situation got resolved while I was in the DMV. We came to an amicable agreement about how we are moving forward, but we're just in different places, literally, and just in life, we don't make sense. I was noticing and reflecting about how my interactions were going with him, and I saw myself trickling back down into this person that I no longer am. And it didn't make me feel alive. It kind of made me feel a little bit all over the place and frazzled. And that's just not who I am anymore. I'm very grounded within myself. Although it was thrilling, there's aspects of it that I liked. I liked about it from a thrilling aspect. And that's just, to be honest, at this tender age, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for like thrills in that way that have a slight hint, like a hint of lime, thrills with a slight hint of toxic. That's just not what I'm looking for. I know that now. And I think it was the final test before I got to this point. Because if I had have just settled for the first guy, the second guy, I wouldn't have gotten to this point. Third time's a charm, right? Those were the reflections that I had during my time in abstinence. And then I also realized during that time is that I developed very strong mental agility, because I have been saying that people have been commenting on my level of self-awareness, but you can't get to the level of self-awareness that I've had if you've not met yourself in solitude. And when you meet yourself in solitude, you're not meeting yourself at very beautiful and glamorous places all the time. Sometimes you are meeting yourself at the bare bones of your spirit. And a lot of that can be humbling and disheartening, but I always saw the glimmer and the glimpses of everything that I am and who I am becoming. That was my saving grace, is that I never gave in to those lows. And I know that the pendulum swings. Nothing is forever. It's just for a good time. There was not an aspect of me feeling lonely during abstinence, but it definitely was the urges of I want to have sex, and I want to have sex right now, and I don't want to even have to think too hard about it, but I just don't want to have sex with anyone. And so I channeled that energy into businesses, into creativity, into producing something of me that wasn't sex, because sex and creation, liberation, that level is all the same to me. It's a way to commune. And it led me to this point. Here we are. I'm in the DMV and I'm exchanging time with my crush. And my crush is Soul. And I have been exchanging time with him for almost a month now. It's not been long, but it's been powerful. Very, very powerful times. More powerful than I would say anyone combined, because of the way that we interact with each other on a multidimensional level. He had the leverage while I was in the DMV because he was a part of my day to day, and he saw me going through real life things and navigating different dynamics that are just new for me, as far as a familial perspective, and also as far as a dating perspective and what that looks like for me, and being able to talk about it. That's a real one. Real one time are those who you can actually talk about the shit with that has nothing to do with them, and see how they respond. I mentioned this last week. It wasn't a test, but even if it was a test, he would have passed with flying colors. He understood that I was just processing in real time at the same time as I was telling him. And so there grew to be a respect there. And then he shared intimate stories with me about his upbringing and his life, and I was able to share with him, and we grew to be comfortable. Now it's a layered situation because he's seeing me in so many different capacities. He is showing up for me in the way that I need, in the way that is possible for him from a virtual standpoint. And he is asking the proper questions and learning and researching. He did a really good job researching about him and I from a astrology perspective, deeper about our connection, because he could then leverage our interactions with one another. And that was not necessarily his school of thought, but it was what happened. It worked in his favor because he was doing that. It was an investment for him. And for me, I knew that I was going to have sex with him before I met him. That's how deep our connection has been. I already knew, based off of the quality and caliber of our conversations and our interactions, how it felt more so. By the time I got back from my travels, I knew that I was going to have sex with him. And it just so happened on summer solstice weekend. For those of you who don't practice or participate or understand what summer solstice is the time of year where we get the most light in the northern hemisphere. When you get light, everything is illuminated. And so it's a very powerful time. It's a portal time for manifestations and for light forward energy. There were so many deep and serendipitous things that was associated with that time that I don't even think that we necessarily thought about. It was just a time that we had available in our schedules to be with each other. When I got to him that night, it was our second time actually seeing each other. in real life, It was calm, it was peaceful, it was harmonious, very chill. He has an impeccable ability to anticipate needs and host and provide, make sure that I was comfortable, make sure that I was good. We had both created playlists for one another to listen to just kind of set the mood. We're both very connected to music. His playlist was going to go first because his playlist was more of the vibes. My playlist was more centered around the act and creation of sex. So we listened to his playlist first. We were chilling. It was beautiful. We had some shroomy juice and we smoked a little bit and getting connected into our bodies because it was a big deal. There was so many factors that was going on. Like I hadn't tallied up the 595 days until Sunday. But at this point, it was just the realization of this chapter is closing for me and how beautiful it is to do so today. We chilled for a little bit. We talked for a little bit. We kissed for a lot of bit. And then it was time. And I had been in his room before, but I remember nothing about his room. Not because I was faded or off my ass or sloppy or anything. It was just that I was caught up in the moment with him the first time that we exchanged time together. When we went into the room, it just got real because we switched the music and he made me feel extremely comfortable and extremely safe. I talk about consent a lot on the show because consent is important. And there was a level of consent for those of you who've had shroomy nights. Everything comes in waves. There is a wave of feeling very elated, happy, and carefree. And then there can be a wave of anxiety that comes in and questioning and all these things. Our first time together, and the breaking of the seal could not have gone any better than what I would have anticipated. I think that the way that his room is set up is very sacred. He's already expressed to me that my abstinence time was sacred and understands that. There were moments in time where we just didn't get it right, but we laid together and we talked about it too. And there wasn't any awkwardness, there wasn't any anger, there wasn't any judgment. It was just being. And then I looked at him and I told him, like, this can't be the way that this goes because we have such beautiful chemistry together. And that's not what I saw for myself. We needed to do a couple rounds to get it right. And when we got it right, we got it really right. And it was beautiful. It couldn't have gone any better than what I had anticipated. I could not have orchestrated that better myself. It was intense and it was perfect. It felt great. It felt absolutely great. I don't know that I've ever felt this great during sex. Shout out to the men who have integrated their traumas because sex just feels better with men who have really worked on themselves and done some internal work. My God, I've never. It was perfect. Perfect. He has a beautiful penis. Loved it. Chef kiss. That was one of the realizations. And then it also made me realize that there was preparation for this on my end too. So go be for preparing yourself for this moment. I partied while I was in the DMV. I was with family. We had a lot of celebratory times and we partied. When I came back, there was a level of detoxification that I wanted to do to prep myself for ceremony with this man. I went ahead and cleansed my body. Waters, fruits, juices, eating clean, eating fruits and veggies, not eating meat, not drinking, no self-pleasure, and then also just making sure that I was taking care of my body, being soft, making sure that my cortisol levels were where they needed to be and not over stressing about any factors that I couldn't control. I had ceremony with myself because I knew sex was going to be a ceremony within itself. So I prepared myself and held ceremony for myself beforehand. I wrote the transformational letters. I had candlelight baths and moments to myself and reflections, journaled, all of those things beforehand. If any of you know about journeys like ayahuasca, you have to cleanse yourself first before experiencing that medicine. Very strict diet and routine before you commune with that medicine. And I treated losing my second virginity as if I were to have an ayahuasca journey, the cleansing, the mental preparation, and really just getting ready to do so. And there was so many feels. And I also realized that in that first time that I had sex with him, because yes, there were several times, but in that first time that I had sex with him, I realized that my sexologist was right. The things that she was right about, I didn't have to get the lube, I didn't have to get the toys, I didn't have to prepare myself to open. I just opened for the right man because it was based on feels and it was based on our interactions together and alignment. Me and the man earlier this year had a lot of good interactions together. And there was chemistry there, but it's different levels of chemistry. Some things just hit differently, literally. And he wasn't doing it for me or my body. After we were done, we stayed together for a little bit and he asked me if I wanted to stay and I didn't have my contact case. I wasn't prepared to stay. And so I left. And the moon was so beautiful. So I felt grateful because I worked on myself for this moment and I manifested this beautiful interaction. I could not have orchestrated it better myself. I keep saying that. If it was a perfect symphony, every single instrument played its part in the exact time that it needed to. I expected there to be some ebbs and flows in connecting with one another because we were just getting a chance to understand and learn each other's bodies. We had learned and took time to study one another from a virtual perspective, from an interaction perspective, from a communication perspective, but we've not had the time to learn each other's bodies. And they're still learning that we are willing to do. There still may be some learning curves. I'm training on the job right now. And I love that he didn't make me feel bad about myself because my body was doing exactly what it needed to do. We were also on shrooms, so it was about feeling, and I just feel like it went the way that it was supposed to go. The following day was summer solstice, and I woke up and I spent some time soaking up the sun. And I looked at the sky and I felt so super grateful. I've never been grateful to have sex before. And I felt something in my heart, but I didn't know exactly what it was until Sunday. I was able to exchange time with him on Saturday twice and see him and his artistry and his craft. And that was beautiful for me because it was a different perspective. And I've not had that before in that way. And it felt natural, it felt good. And then Saturday night on actual summer solstice, we exchanged more time together. We watched a movie, we watched a comedy special, and then we got it in. For the second time, and it was perfect. I could not take it perfect. And then I was like, oh no, I have to still work up to who I used to be. But maybe not. Maybe it's not about me working up to who I used to be because I've outgrown those versions. It's about being able to work with who I am now and seeing what sex looks like for me at this moment in time. There was a moment where I was laughing because I was having so much fun, and I remember having sex and it not feeling right because the energy was off. But this sex was like perfect because the energy was right and it felt really, really good. And we were just having a good time with one another. We were able to talk and vibe and be. It was nice. It was really, really nice to experience. And it just made me think even more about how many times I've had sex with men who are unhealed. And cum is the seed that gets planted and rooted in the vagina, which is a portal. And so it's passing negative energies through the portal. And this was nothing but vibes. Like I literally felt vibes being passed. There was a moment when we were having sex and I was getting ready to come and I literally felt my portal burst open. And it felt like sun. I felt the light and I felt the love and I felt the care because he was having sex with me like he cares. And that made me feel good and it made me feel safe. And it also made me want to do incredibly nasty things to him as I plan on it. And all I could think of is it's so perfect because I manifested this and I deserve this for myself. And he knows, which is super cool. His awareness to me and our surroundings and all of those things to I was walking up to him on Friday and he was on the balcony watching me. Apparently there was a car, which I don't have any recollection of, but there was a car and it was a guy in a car and the guy looked at me and did a triple take, according to Soul. I didn't notice at all because I was just focused on looking at him and getting excited that I was getting ready to exchange time with him because he is cool. We have a very dope bond together, and it's because I feel like I can talk to him about anything. I feel like we're friends who are creating a very deep bond with one another to lay a foundation for something that can possibly morph into something else later down the line. We don't have to be focused on when exactly that will be. We just have to be focused on entertaining and flirting with the idea that it may. And if not, he's super cool. And I don't regret any of these moments. All of these moments with him have been super sweet. And I appreciate him. I spent Sunday again in ceremony and just very introspective, not necessarily active ceremony of doing anything. Sunday, when I woke up, my heart felt cracked open. And I've only experienced this one other time, which was after my yoni and womb clearing. My heart felt like it was sitting outside of my body. And that's a scary feeling because you feel so exposed and so open. This time it wasn't necessarily scary. It was scary the first time that it happened because I have never felt anything like that. But the shaman never touched my heart center. She told me that it was because I had released and removed so much from my womb space and my yoni space, and I had cleared out so much that now it made room for my heart to be open. And for the first time in my entire history of having sex, since I've been 18 years old, I felt my heart be open. It started to crack on Friday, and I can almost recall the exact moment that it happened on Saturday because it was just bliss. And so Sunday, I felt like I needed to be introspective and drink cacao and pretty much be in bed, have bed peace all day because I didn't want any outside influences to impact my beingness. You can't share that goodness with everyone. Sometimes you just have to source that for yourself and resource that for yourself. I felt reborn. And since then, I've not actually been in the outside world just yet. And I will go, but I just wanted to make sure that my heart was where it needed to be first and it was safe. What I love about him is that I'm able to express myself and any of my thoughts. Sometimes, like my very unorganized thoughts that I just have, and I'm like, I got to tell you this really quick because this is on my heart or on my mind. And I've been having these thoughts and conversations with him very deeply about what I've been feeling. And he's been so receptive of them all and allowing me to have my thoughts and process them with me, kind of thing. And I feel like that was perfect. This entire time has been one big long ceremony from the preparation for it to the actual act of it and even the aftercare. I did so much journaling on Sunday of just reflection and being still, doing breath work. I've also gotten back into my practices with yoga because I know that what I feel is real. And we have some karmic things between us as well. You can feel it when we're together. It doesn't feel all the time like we're in this time and space. It feels like we are reliving old lives that we've had together. but this time we're getting the opportunities to do it differently. Obviously, we have unfinished business from past lifetimes. And so this time we are getting a chance to rewrite our story or complete our story, our soul's purpose. There's a lot of alignment. He can say it better than I could ever, but there's a lot of alignment and our chart that shows that this is deeper than what we may understand right now, and to just be open to let it unfold however it's going to do so without any expectations. And that's why I'm solely off feels. It goes perfectly into my summer vibes because I said that I was living off vibes and focusing on summer, and this goes perfectly into that because it's just based off of a feeling. I know somewhere deep down in there that this is what's supposed to be. And there could have been moments where I judged myself for how fast that this may seem. But when you are thinking about how it feels and focusing on the aura of it all and the energy of it all, what is time? What does it matter if you know that that's something that you're going to do anyway? It doesn't matter. It makes no sense. And so after 595 days, I'm officially back in the game, coach. No, but I'm out of abstinence and it feels good. It feels really, really good to be back because now I have this new level of awareness and I get to show my tricks and everything that I've learned from the time that I spent together with this dope ass person, which is very cool. I'm thrilled about that and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. Lots and lots of gratitude for this incredible human being. Thank you for being with me on this journey and through this chapter. 595 days. Everything just seems so fitting. 595 days equates to the number 1 in numerology. The number 1 is representative of new beginnings and creativity, new beginnings of opening a portal with light. I was watched over by a pharaoh and under trippy art and altars. I saw the sun and I felt the light. And so I know that this was for purpose and it couldn't have gone any better. It couldn't have been any other time that I would have been this ready and this excited and had this quality experience that I had with soul. It was impeccable. Is it too early to say the best? We got to practice some more. Tell them I need to practice some more. But it's getting steamy. I'm getting hot. We can pull back the covers. And I love y'all big. I will see you next Thursday.